And hello people of YouTube, and welcome to the next installment for the Life and Times Narnia videos. Now of course I've done 3 previous ones. I've covered Peter, Susan and Edmund, and of course this one, as you can tell from the background, I am covering the youngest Pevensie sibling, which is of course Lucy. Now this video I know is long awaited. I'll shout out to a YouTuber called Monica Alcedo. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. They wanted to know when I'm recording this video, so here it is. My apologies for the long wait for it. So I'm just going to jump straight into it. So obviously Magician's Nephew. So I'm going to talk about obviously ages, and of course I'm going to put a spoiler warning. So if you haven't read the books or watched any of the adaptations, I highly suggest you don't watch this video because there obviously will be major spoilers. So of course Magician's Nephew, Lucy doesn't appear in because the events happen before she's born. In Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, Lucy is 8 years old and she's 23 at the end. Prince Caspian, she is 9. Voyage of the Dawn Treader, she is 10. Silverchair, it's not really announced how old she is because she doesn't appear in that story. Horse and His Boy, she's 22, and The Last Battle, she is 17 years old. Okay, so family. My apologies, I'm just sorting out my charger. So obviously Peter, Susan and Edmund are of course her older brother, well, her 2 older brothers and her older sister. Obviously she has Helen and Mr. Pevensie, who are her mum and her dad. Harold and Alberta, who are her aunt and uncle. And of course Eustace, who is her cousin. So weapons. So this is going to be an interesting one. Weapons. She has a dagger which was given to her by Father Christmas in The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. Along with the dagger, she is given a small cordial, which contains the juice of the fire flower. And this juice can cure like any injury, like any bruising, any scrapes, any life-threatening injury. It can cure it. Lucy also does use a bow and arrows, although she does. I think she uses the bow and arrows in The Horse and His Boy because she does become quite a skilled archer like Susan, and she does use the bow and arrow in the Voyage of the Dawn Treader film. And she does use a sword in the Voyage of the Dawn Treader film, although it's not mentioned that she uses a sword in the books. Titles, the only one I could find is her main one, Queen Lucy the Valiant. So let me just sort this out. Okay, so, oh, there's fireworks going off in the background. Okay, so Magician's Nephew we can skip straight through. So The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. So, of course, Lucy, along with her older siblings, they get sent away to the countryside because it's, you know, World War II is happening, it's dangerous. So they're sent away to the countryside where it's safe. And she, basically when they get there, they have a look round, I think. You know, they explore the house and Lucy finds a big wardrobe. Now she goes in it and I think it says that she has like a bit of an obsession with like fur coats. She likes the feel of them. And this is where she discovers Narnia. Now obviously she's very bewildered that she stumbled across a forest in the back of a wardrobe. Now here she meets, of course, Mr. Tumnus. Now Mr. Tumnus obviously is a faun, and he invites Lucy to come to his house, you know, for tea. And she agrees. So she goes to his house for tea. However, his true intentions were initially to send her to sleep and then hand her over to the White Witch. Now he does end up playing a flute that does send her to sleep, but then Aslan roars in the fire and it basically like kind of knocks a bit of sense into Tumnus, so he basically can't go through with, you know, giving Lucy up now. So instead of giving her up to the White Witch, he actually helps her to get back by taking her back into the forest. So Lucy returns, she tells her siblings about Narnia, they don't believe her, they all think she's crazy. Edmund starts making fun of her, Peter and Susan are getting a little bit worried. So it isn't until a game of hide and seek when Lucy goes back to the wardrobe, to see whether it was a real place. Maybe she knocked herself out, maybe she was dreaming. So she goes back to the wardrobe, she ends up going back to Narnia, she sees Thomas again. But this time Edmund follows her. But Edmund, basically, when he ends up getting into Narnia, he's bewildered that it was real all along. And he doesn't know where Lucy's gone. He does eventually reunite with Lucy, but he doesn't tell Lucy, who he'd met or what he was doing. So Lucy is very excited because now she has Edmund to back up her claim that, it is real. But Edmund basically is a jerk and basically tells Peter and Susan, we were just playing, we were just playing a game. So Lucy gets really upset. And it isn't until, I believe, Mrs. McCready is showing people around the house. And basically the siblings all have to hide, and they end up hiding in the wardrobe, and this is where all four of them come to Narnia together. Now, to make it up to Lucy, Peter and Susan agree that, Lucy should be the one that decides, what we're going to do. So Lucy says, I'll take you all to see Mr. Thomas. So when they get to Thomas's house, they see the whole place has been trashed. It looks like it's been broken into. Thomas isn't there. And there's a note from Margaret basically saying that Thomas had been arrested for fraternising with humans. Now, of course, when Edmund earlier was in Narnia, he had met the White Witch, and he had told the White Witch, Lucy had met a fawn called Thomas. This is how the White Witch found out. And this is why Thomas has been arrested. So shortly after this, they meet the Beavers. They go down to the Beavers' home. They have some food. And this is where they learn of the prophecy that two sons of Adam, two daughters of Eve, they're destined to defeat the White Witch. And that Aslan is on the move in Narnia. Now, at the end of this conversation, everyone notices that Edmund sneaked out. They go search for him. They can't find him. So they have no option but to carry on, because the Beavers basically say, if Edmund's gone to the White Witch, he's going to tell her where we are. So the children carry on, and eventually, during their travels, they do meet Father Christmas, where Lucy receives her dagger and her cordial. And she's told, only use the dagger in times of great need. You're not to fight in the battle that's looming. And eventually they do make it to Aslan's camp. And they do make it to Aslan's camp, and they Lucy and Susan are later attacked by Morgrim. Morgrim's slain by Peter. Edmund is later rescued and reunited with his siblings. And then it isn't until the White Witch basically demands a meeting with Aslan. So obviously everybody's worried during this meeting, Lucy especially. So after the meeting is over, the White Witch basically spares Edmund's life. Lucy is the one that notices, Aslan doesn't really seem himself. He seems really down. It's as if something bad is going to happen. Lucy just has that feeling. So does Susan. But the boys are kind of not too worried about it. So during the night, Susan and Lucy end up following Aslan. And they follow him to a certain point where Aslan tells them, you have to stop here. It's too dangerous. I've got to go on alone. And it's here where Lucy and Susan hide in the bushes, and they witness Aslan's sacrifice on the stone table where he had given his life for Edmund. So after Aslan's death on the stone table, Susan and Lucy stay with Aslan's body. Eventually they know they can't stay there forever. They're gonna have to get back, and this is when the stone table cracks and Aslan appears, and he basically tells them that when someone basically is willing to sacrifice himself in the place of a traitor, the stone table cracks and the death is basically reversed. So basically what happens next is that Aslan lets Susan and Lucy ride on his back, and they go to the witch's castle to help revive the statues. Now this is obviously where Lucy finds Tomnus, and obviously Tomnus had been turned into a statue, but Aslan revives him, and then basically with the help of all the Narnians that they had saved, the battle is ultimately won, and Lucy is crowned queen alongside her sister and her two brothers. Now, of course, end of Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, they're chasing the white stag through the woods, and they accidentally stumble back into their own world. So that is Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. So moving on to Prince Caspian. Now the children are all waiting to go back to school, and they feel like a very strange, it feels like they're being tugged from their world, and they find themselves in what they later find out is the ruins of Cair Paravel, because it's been over 1,000 years in Narnia. They do find their hidden treasure, chambers, or their hidden treasure room, where Lucy gets her dagger back, she gets her cordial back. Now they meet Trumpkin, and after, persuading Trumpkin that, they are the old kings and queens, Trumpkin is basically leading them to where Caspian is, and along the way Lucy sees Aslan. Now the others don't believe her. They basically say, we're in the woods, there could be any wild lions or wild beasts in the woods, you've probably mistaken Aslan for an actual, just a normal regular lion. But Aslan's like, no, basically Lucy says, no, I recognise Aslan when I see him. Later Edmund sees him as well, and Peter and Susan are last to see Aslan, but Lucy ends up, I think at one point they're all asleep, and Aslan actually wakes Lucy up and tells Lucy that, time's been wasted, you all need to, time has been wasted today. So Aslan basically tells Lucy, you need to make sure the others follow you. If they don't, you have to follow me alone. But the others do follow Lucy, and eventually they're all reunited with Aslan. Now, whilst the battle goes on, I think Susan and Lucy stay with Aslan and they deal with that side, whilst Peter and Edmund are fighting in the battle. Now, of course, this plays out differently in the movie because Lucy is the one that goes off on her own on horseback to find Aslan. So at the end of Prince Caspian, basically Peter and Susan are told, you're too old to come back to Narnia, but Lucy is told that she and Edmund will come back again. So now we get to the Voyage of the Dawn Treader. So basically Lucy, Edmund and Eustace are basically dragged into the painting of the Dawn Treader. So on the Lone Islands, they're kidnapped by slave traders, but they're later rescued. They end up on Dragon Island, where Lucy is the one to figure out that the dragon, basically a dragon ends up flying down and blocking their only way off the island, and Lucy is the one that realises, hang on a minute, this dragon is crying, even though the others believe, it's just dragon tears, it's a ploy to trick you. But Lucy basically says, no, the dragon's crying, and from this they do eventually discover the dragon is actually Eustace. Once Eustace is undragoned, they do end up fighting off the sea serpent. They end up pushing the sea serpent off the ship. Lucy is involved in the quarrel at Goldwater or Deathwater, where I think they're wanting to take like the gold out of Narnia, and Caspian's like, you can't take anything out of Narnia, so there ends up being a bit of an argument. But it is Aslan that basically stops this argument. Lucy is, of course, the one to meet the Dufflepuds. And she tells the others about them, and basically Lucy is the one that has to go into the magician's house and read the book to break the spell, to make the Dufflepuds like non-ugly. Later they are on Dark Island, and Lucy is the one that basically says, you know, Aslan, please help us. And the albatross flies down, and Lucy hears in Aslan's voice, you know, that from the albatross basically leads the ship out of Dark Island. Then, of course, there is Aslan's table, where, you know, it's full of food, and they're told that the three lords that are asleep at the table will only wake when one person goes into Aslan's country. Which is, of course, at the end of it, it is Reaper that goes. At the end of the Voyage of the Dawn Treader, there's the emotional goodbye. You know, this is Edmund and Lucy's last time in Narnia. But they're told by Aslan, you know, you need to learn to know me by another name in your world. Now, talking about the Horse and his boys, this is during the Pevensie's reign, during the Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. So at this point, Lucy's become quite a fierce warrior, and quite a skilled archer. So basically, she and Edmund ride together to wage battle. I think it's when there's the guy that wants to marry Susan, and he ends up like tricking them. Or he ends up being a bad person. So I think it's Edmund and Lucy that go to wage battle. Lucy is present at the trial of Prince Rabadash. Yeah, that was his name, Rabadash. And Lucy is the one that suggests the sentence that was eventually passed. So it is also mentioned that she stayed very close friends with Mr. Tomness. Silver Chair we can skip because Lucy doesn't appear in the Silver Chair. So now we are on to the last battle. Now, Lucy, along with Jill, Diggory, Polly, and Peter and Edmund, they see the spectre figure of King Tyrion. And they realise that, you know, something must be wrong in Narnia. We have to get back there. So they decide to use the magic rings that Diggory and Polly used to get to Narnia, into Narnia the first time around. They decide to use the rings to get back. So basically they decide to use the rings whilst they're on a train. But this doesn't happen, as the train ends up crashing and it basically kills everybody that's on board. There's no survivors. So Lucy, along with Peter, Edmund, Diggory, Polly, Jill, Eustace, and the Pevensie's parents, they all get killed in this tragic accident. And basically, I think in the afterlife, Lucy is scared that, you know, when she sees Aslan, she's scared that Aslan's just going to send her away. Aslan explains that, you know, I'm not going to send you away on Earth. You all died in the train crash. So Aslan basically says, you know, this is where you'll be spending the afterlife in the new Narnia in heaven. So that is a very quick summary. I do apologise, I did rush through this video quite a bit, I think. But I have got a cold and I generally just don't feel too well. But I wanted to get this video done because I know that I did the other three and there was a bit of a gap between the third episode and this one. But hopefully I've done the previous two videos you've seen. I've done 2 Narnia Life vlogs, so hopefully that'll make up for it. So I'm planning on, now that I've done all 4 Pevensies for the Life and Times, I do want to know your guys' suggestions. What character? Well, I'm planning on doing every character anyway, but what character would you like me to do next? Cast your votes in the comments, and you know, whichever character gets the most comments or the most votes, that will be the next character that I will discuss in the next Life and Times. So I'm glad you guys are enjoying this mini-series whilst there's no Netflix Narnia news. So I hope you're all keeping well, and further up and further in until the next video. See you later, guys.